voices coming through the static. Distant radio stations lost in time. Eerie crackling from faraway lands. And it's a hot summer night. And you can't sleep. And everything's so still, it's like the energy's building up. Strange voices coming through the static. And the radio signals bounce from wistful antennas. And there's something Saharan about existence. And you can't breathe because of all the dust choking the neon. Strange voices coming through the static. You could be a winner if only you had the luck. Don't leave me, babe, don't leave me, babe, don't ever give me up. Strange voices coming through the static. You were my last infatuation. You were my last euphoria. So honey, you might as well stay, stay, stay with me. Strange voices coming through the static. And it sounds like they're talking to me. You are Robert, no one else is. You are Robert, only one of you. I am my own history, I am my own self, I am my own spirit. There is no one else. Strange voices coming through the static. Isn't it funny how things change? We all grow up. And as we pass through life, we use the accumulated knowledge of our existence to help respond to the chaos that surrounds us. It helps us make sense of it. And there's a hell of a lot of chaos to make sense of when you start looking for it. People change. They mature. Their minds and their bodies develop. They never stay static. This is called The Increasing Physical Dexterity of Justin Bieber. With each day that passes, the physical strength of Justin Bieber increases. His dexterity and agile nature are evident in any fight scenario. If someone's acting in a menacing manner, it's him I want on my side. He's growing up. He's more sure of himself. His muscles are developing and he's learning how to use them. Biebs is on a mission. I'm less sure of myself. My own puny, wimpy life is riddled with inconsequentialities. I have neither the tenacity, the agility, or the mesmerising hair of Justin Bieber. I do the washing up, and I take out the recycling, all the time pondering on his increasing physical strength. Pretty soon he will devour us all. As his body develops, it begins to take on the chiselled nature of a classical statue, and his poise evokes the work of Michelangelo. The subtle layering of muscle on bone structure affords him the upper hand in any hostile situation. If he were any more statuesque, he'd be a statue. Blessed be he, O Bieber, who makes us gibber and quake. Blessed be he with the thunder in his chest. Blessed be he, fortune's sunray, multilinear, postmodernist, zeitgeist, bunny, flip-flop. Blessed be he, mighty, mighty, towering colossus of pop. Blessed be he with his interesting collection of tattoos. Blessed be he with the existentialist duplicity of living. Blessed be the hours I've spent in contemplation of his greatness. Blessed be the overriding poetry of his music. Oh, how it grabs you in the heart. Blessed be the world as it spins and it turns and it shines, all on account of his increasing physical dexterity. He uses his fists with skill and with lightning reflexes. You can't actually see what he's doing because he moves quicker than light. He excels in acrobatics like a Shaolin warrior, seemingly defying gravity, which serves to blind his enemies, see them cower in confusion. He'd be called the Flash or the Lightning Bolt if he weren't already known as Justin Bieber. He's got a mind as pure as the Dalai Lama and as calculating as a calculator. Last night, a thief stole my mobile phone, and Biebs, like a shape-shifting berserker of Icelandic folklore, tore into the chap, not only returning my phone, but also belting out one of his hit songs. I don't know which one it was. They all sound the same. 2009. Feeling so damn unique. There's nobody like me in the world. That sensation of circumstance, geography and time being in just the right alignment to create me and me alone. And there's poetry in my chest. It's beating away, pounding out strange rhythms with the absolute promise of being such an individual that I might one day change society and make a real difference to the world. Putting pen to paper, oh you brave poet, your words will echo like an aftershock, an earthquake, as time bends in on you with your uniqueness, like Lord Byron with a megaphone, Wordsworth with an attitude, Ted Hughes on the 10 o'clock news shaking his fist at convention. Oh, 2020. 11 years of writing poetry and discovering there's nothing really unique about me at all. 11 years of writing poetry about minor trips out to the dentist, mild personal discomfort and vacuum cleaners. 11 years of looking in the mirror every morning and saying, yeah, that'll do. 11 years of my work being compared to that of John Betjeman, usually by people who say his work is not as good as that of John Betjeman. 11 years static, a life spent going nowhere. I was born in Surrey. It's an odd place, because it's almost a non-place. It's like a holding area, a buffer zone, as if London has thrown up on a green shag pile rug. When they began to run out of cemetery space in the capital in the Victorian times, they used to ship the bodies out to Woking on a special train, and I think of this every time I catch the 5:23 from Waterloo. Most of Surrey is taken up with transport infrastructure, motorways, railway lines and airports. So there's always this sense growing up that there are other, more exotic and exciting places to live, destinations. You've got to keep moving. If you become static, even for a second, you're lost. They say that the ultimate state of the universe is chaos, but they've probably never had to negotiate the Egham bypass. I was brought up with a sense of low expectations and the absolute blandness of existence. Even my name is boring. Robert Garnham. I sound like an estate agent. I like to think that I was named after my dad's favourite singer, Bob Dylan, who is, of course, Robert Zimmerman. And this makes me at least a little bit excited about being called Roberts. But at the time I was born, my aunt worked in the factory in West Molesey, making Roberts radios. I've got a hideous feeling that I was named after a transistor. I grew up on a house on a hill. 3 generations, 6 of us in a 2-up, 2-down cottage, surrounded by woods in the hills of Surrey. From the back bedroom window at night I could see the whole of West London. In the evenings I'd tune my little radio through the static to the jazz stations and sit there for hours in the heat and the humidity of the sticky forest Surrey summer and gaze at the neon and the road signs and the motorway lights. Bored of the humdrum, bored of the same old, bored of the logic, the history I created for myself. Bored of the suburbs with their suburban psyche ever so frightening, never struck by lightning, hardly ever fighting, conservatory clung, backyard train line, whistle whip, suburban nothing. Bored of the trains. Bored of the quiet streets with their brown brick identical departmental uniformity. Bored of the plains. The history I created for myself. Bored of the A30. Bored of the M25 with its orbital 4-lane crawler lane corridor lights strung round at night in their sodium glare like a string of pearls around London's chubby neck. Bored of Junction 13. Staines. The history I created for myself. Bored of my friends. Bored of Paul, Kevin, Malcolm with the runny nose. Bored of Darren with his spiky hair, facial hair, glacial stare, neither here nor there, and the times we spent in his small flat over the greengrocers where I first. Bored of Helen, Natasha. Bored of all the girls, bored of the village green. The history I created for myself. Bored of London. Bored that it should be just out of reach, bored of the quivering fingertips outstretched never touching, bored of the airport with its terminals and taxiways and tower blocks and takeaways and taxi ranks and terrorists. Bored of the planes with their jet range long haul and their sharp fins like shark fins negotiating Hounslow hangars like the opening scene in Jaws. The history I created for myself. Bored of the ethos, the memories. Bored of telling the same old story with its half-lies and masked lives, its allegations and feigned surprise, hints and suppositions and nice tries, concealments and congealments, corruptions of the honest in all its truth-stealing, layer-peeling, nerve-breaking, heart-rending, action-defending, comedy-dependent, occasionally resplendent, ancestor-descendant, shelf-replenishment life of mine in which absolutely nothing happened. School was hell. Frost-clung sun and scratchy ear-splitting aircraft in the cold winter morning. The thrum and the hum of motorway traffic filtered through sliding 1980s windows, chalk dust swirling in a low-slung sunbeam. Darren arrives first, with his spiky hair, an ever-present grin, all new and fresh, baby of the class, not terribly bright. He swore blind that the current US president was Abraham Lincoln, and he couldn't understand why people in Dublin could speak English. I look like a ghost, feeling old even then. These kids will soon be men, and I'll never see them again. Then the lads come in, fresh from a morning kickabout. Justin, Paul and Justin. Big-mouthed, leery lads smelling of hair products, diesel exhaust from suburban bus rides, cheap aftershave, even though none of them can shave, all with their same hairstyles modelled on pop music heartthrob Rick Astley and kids' TV presenter Andy Crane. Others filter in. Jocks and sports aficionados, deep-throated spotty Jack the lads, male bimbos and the terminally odd, random souls thrown together by secondary school scheduling, quoting football statistics and carrying sports equipment emblazoned with various London team logos, the air thick with teenage hormones and estuary accents, mock Cockney, strange sudden Americanisations they've learned from watching the A-Team. They josh and joke and joke and josh, joking about football managers, joking about football teams and football players and football supporters, and I tell them I'd love to join in with all this football-based jocularity, but I don't know anything about football, so when it comes to football jokes, I'm stumped. Not one of them laughs. Next would arrive Omar, sensitive intellectual who, unlike me, would mug up on the football results the night before so as not to be left out. And Alan, anonymous Alan, who was just one of the lads. And Phil, who in all of our 4 years never once did or said anything remotely noteworthy. It seemed our class had every conceivable type of the stale, stereotypical representations, except there was none of those slightly camp nerdy types that you often see. But hang on a minute. That was probably me. Not exactly the class clown. I was seen more as a sage, a prototype Alan Bennett, not least because I'd memorised comedy one-liners, my speciality being New York stand-up, delivered in the poshest Surrey accent. Even then I was pretty weird, but it saved me from getting beaten to a pulp every break time. Frequent laughter and boisterousness. One of the Justins would break wind, and all of the other Justins would laugh, as if it was the funniest, most whimsical amusement of the decade. And Darren and Wayne would argue because they couldn't remember the name of the family in Bigfoot and the Hendersons. It was the Hendersons. I hated those losers with a passion. I hated Justin's hyperactive shrieking. I hated the way Paul would belch, and then everyone would laugh, and others would then start belching, getting bigger laughs than I got with any of my carefully constructed Neil Simon-esque one-liners. I hated the way that Alan would copy everything that Justin did, as if Justin was a philosopher of the age, even when the thing that Justin had just done was downright mean and vindictive. I hated the whole lot of them, and the way they'd laugh and laugh and laugh if any word sounded like it might rhyme with knob, bum, tit, anus, wank, butt or boob, and yet when I pointed out that Arsenal started with the word arse, they just nod blankly and say, "Your point being?" Oh, I hated these kids. I hated these muppets. Gary with his mullet, Dan with his beef-flavoured crisps, Wayne, who smelled like beef-flavoured crisps, Justin with his runny nose, Paul, who swore that wrestling was real. I hated them all, apart from Darren, whose spiky hair, even after all these years, I still copy, just to be like him. I hated them, and I wanted to escape. As I say, these kids became men. I see them on Facebook now, old and fat, bald and married. None of them ended up playing for Arsenal. None of them made it as a professional wrestler. They're now plumbers, managers, dads and granddads. And that's when it strikes. They think I'm still sitting there, in that tutor group room. And they all escaped from me. So that was my school years, and as I say, I grew up on this house, 3 generations of us, 2 up, 2 down house, looking at the lights of London, thinking there is absolutely nothing remarkable about me or this place at all, except for the fact that I was gay. But to be honest, I did have one crack at being straight, and that's what this poem is all about. It's called Kate. And I really hope she's not watching. She stood before me on a sultry summer Surrey night, the stone steps of her parents' flat radiating the day's heat, bricks soaked with sun sweat, sweet dust smells and caramels, and the subtlety of Kate's fragrance, ever so delicate. The moment was so beautiful. And so was Kate. Her cousin was a former Miss World. Her aunt was married to a very famous film star, Kate. Californian Kate with Guianan ancestry, skin so soft like coffee, wide cinnamon eyes filled with love on that exotic sin-drenched August night, standing before each other in the moment of purest romance. Yet I felt nothing. Worse, I could sense a dark chasm deep inside of me, swallowed down with every lie, every untruth, every evasion so obvious as to obliterate all but my own teenage fabrications, and Kate, culturally American, who saw in me the mannerisms of a Disney gentleman, as we bent for a kiss on those sun-baked steps, gazing into each other's eyes like lovers are meant to. What do you want? I don't know what I want. How can I reach you? I think it's impossible. Is it something I've done? I think I need a little more time. Time for what? To get my head in order. Why are you lying to me? You're not the only person I'm lying to. Her hand in mine, soft and small and warm, her cut cotton summer dress falling down to her delicate sandals with a modesty that so many others found truly alluring, as I fantasized a Hollywood wedding and saving myself for our first night of bliss, an air-conditioned kiss, plenty of time to steel myself, brace for her beauty, so brave, so brave. I always knew, but I can explain. Every time I looked at you, please don't do this. We were both young. We were both stupid. I tried to change. It's who you are. Please don't do this. Why couldn't you ever tell the truth? Because it was impossible. Certain processes and cultural associations, none of which can excuse the failure to ignite that which only half smouldered, or to grasp a truth so vital as to stay hidden potentially forever. She stood before me, as the deep blue sky smudged itself brown on traffic fumes, as we parted just with a peck on the cheek, a short walk home, relieved to have endured and prolonged the pretense, to a family, happy to have their Romeo return, and everything was all right with the world. So yes, I was gay. And oh mama, I was very gay. I was probably the gayest 13-year-old that Surrey had ever seen. Yet my whole suburban mindset dictated that I should stay in the closet and not tell anyone, because this was Surrey. And people didn't want to know about such things. They were too busy buying bowler hats and going to wife-swapping parties and voting for weird conservatives. And because of this, I thought there was something wrong, a strange error in the system which just affected me. I knew that everything had to change, but the time was never right. It took a few years, and I came out to my friends first. They were surprisingly supportive, but at the same time, they were incredibly surprised. Even though I'd been the gayest 13-year-old that Surrey had ever seen, you see, by the time I was 20, I was a completely different person. In fact, it always comes as a surprise when people discover I'm gay. And I think, to be honest, it's because I'm so manly and macho and masculine and something of a hard nut. I think basically it's because I'm a stud. Though to be honest, I've always felt like a gay man trapped in the body of a bus driver. I always wondered what my friends thought about that whole coming out situation. "I never knew," he said. "You're not flamboyant or anything. In fact, you look like a normal bloke. Jeans and a t-shirt. That's what normal blokes wear, isn't it? Jeans and a t-shirt. Maybe not a t-shirt that says, 'I can't even think straight.' I thought you were wearing it for a bet. So we're still going to be friends, right? You're not going to start fancying me, are you? You're still going to like cheeseburgers and action films. You're not going to start fancying me, are you? You're not going to start dancing to Kylie and wearing foundation, are you? You're not going to start baking quiches, are you? You're not going to start wearing scarves and buying cushions and calling people darling, are you? You're not going to start fancying me, are you? Are you? You're not going to start fancying me, are you? I mean, that's disgusting, isn't it? I always suspected it. I could tell by the way you nibble sausages. I could tell by the way you fondle tangerines. I could tell by the way you'd stop talking whenever Adrian Chiles came on the TV. I could tell by the way you knew instinctively what colour lampshade to buy. That can't be taught, that's genetic. I could tell by the way you dance like a camp dinosaur, floppy-handed, floppy-fringed camp dinosaur, sidestep, shuffle, shuffle, camp dinosaur. That's how I could tell. Hello, I'd say to myself, hello, what's going on here then? Camp dinosaur. I don't know why you told me though. Things were fine the way they were. It explains why you weren't so keen on that film last week. That excellent film. That excellent lesbian porn film. That classic of its genre, hot girls gagging for it, during which you did the crossword. I couldn't understand why you didn't like the lesbian porn film. I understand now, though. But I'll still be your friend, your buddy, your mate. We'll still do the things that normal lads do, all the usual japes and hijinks, the usual mucking around, the usual rough and tumble, the same old playfulness and manly shenanigans, the same old roister-doistering, the same old mock-serious play-fighting, rolling and tumbling, hand-to-hand physical matey bonding we always did, the same old faux-serious slap and tickle, giggling like exhausted schoolgirls, floppy, tired little puppies slumbering together on your bed semi-naked because it's so hot. Oh, why couldn't you tell me? You're not flamboyant or anything. How was I to know? So, I was set up on a blind date by mutual friends, and I must say we hit it off immediately. At the time, I was a part-time shop assistant and he was a trampoline salesman. Looking back now, I can see that he was incredibly patient with me. In fact, he said it's what's inside that counts, and to him, looks weren't that important. Come to think of it, he did charge me 20 quid. The first time I had sex, I remember thinking, this is not the sort of thing that usually happens to me. How right I was. It put me in mind of a 13th century jousting tournament, and it gave me a nosebleed. The person I was doing it at was very patient. Very patient. Don't worry, he said, it happens sometimes. How right he was. I remember undressing, and his complexion changed, and a frown overtook his features. What is it? I asked. I've just remembered, he replied. I've got to go out tomorrow and buy some extra small, bite-sized sausages. Chipolatas. The anticipation, he said, makes it all the more sweet. And you know I wanted to try some foreplay, but please, can we not have another game of buckaroo and just go to bed? We decided to incorporate some food. He squirted cream on my chest and gently licked it off. and I did the same to him, with a pizza and some garlic bread and a selection of potato wedges washed down with a large Pepsi Cola. He lit some candles and he called it mood lighting. I watched the moths circle endlessly. I closed my eyes and tried to think about somebody else, but for some reason the only person who sprang to mind was German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Just after midnight, I really started getting into the swing of it. I let the outside world dissipate as I found a sweet rhythm, the sensual glide of time on fate, bodies sliding with their own inexorable rhythms as the pounding whisper of oneness finally began to seem in reach, and I went for it, and I ground out my love, and I went for it, feeling everything combine in the actual sensual, beautiful, exquisitely awful, spasmodic, sheer bliss of it all, interrupted only when he said, Hey, I'm over here, in the kitchen. So yes, I came out, and I had oodles of sex. Oh my God, but it's hard to imagine looking at me now. But when I was 18 to 20, I was a very attractive young slip of a thing, with a trendy haircut, and a face lit up with the evident joys of life. I always wondered what my first partner would be like, and I would daydream about the usual ones, bearing in mind that this was the early 1990s. Peter Davison from Doctor Who, or Chesney Hawkes, or for some weird reason, Foreign Secretary Douglas Hurd. My first proper partner was a young man called Jamie. He invited me back to his place, ostensibly to show me his collection of Star Trek memorabilia. I knew it was about to get really interesting when he took me to his bedroom to let me see his collection of phasers. This is a poem about how I met Jamie. I'd seen lots of men, but they all looked a bit samey. Jamie was different. His hair was bleached, which on others looked lamey, but he oozed excitement. Can you blame me? He said he wanted to lay me. Jamie, not big on subtlety. He asked me out on a date. I said, wait, I mean really? Have you seen me? You don't look at my profile picture and fear me? Though it is quite a bit out of date. He texted back, it's happening. I look at you and I see true bliss. And he added, a kiss. It wasn't hard to miss. He'd done it in uppercase, which frankly I found ostentatious, but my appetite was voracious, and I tried to act all gracious, which I ruined by replying, yes, 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 yes please, oh yes, definitely, oh yes, gosh. We went out for a meal. He asked if I was real. So sly his gestures, he seemed afire with a burning zeal. He said he had a hunger that was burning deep within. I said, me too. Haven't had any lunch today. He said he had certain urges, and quoted me beautiful verses which I took to be a Byronic romanticist ode to a dead poet's fiancée. Actually, it was Beyoncé. He said he wanted to take it further. I said I was thinking of having a burger. We went to a nightclub. He asked me to dance. I said no chance. I'll probably end up splitting my pants. The music was loud, the lasers so bright, and at 10 p.m. it was the latest I'd been up at night. There wasn't a person over 30 in the room. My room was filled with hormones and acne. It wasn't to be. It wasn't for me. I asked at the bar for a cup of tea. But you danced, Jamie. You danced with all your might. A rhythmic, blurry maelstrom of the night, writhing with sexual innuendo, contorting your lithe, T-shirted frame. I knew that I would never be the same, as you pounded and gyrated at one with the beat, enmeshed with the rhythm, the excitement, the heat. I could feel strange stirrings from my head to my feet, and all of a sudden I started to dance, to lose myself to the music. Not sure how to do it, not sure how it goes, I flailed my arms and crack! broke someone's nose. Waiting on the street for a cab, sudden yearning for a kebab. A backstreet taxi takes me amid backstreet fumbles to the gateway of maybe Jamie, to your flat share, sat there, feebly offering a fiver to help pay for the cab fare, allergies playing up because of all the cat's hair, kissing like I've never been with any other, not minding that we had to be quiet so we didn't wake your brother, not minding that you had a Jean-Luc Picard duvet cover. Because I like you. And I like it that I like you. And you like me, and I like it that you like me. And you like it that I like you. And I like it that you like it that I like you. And you like it that I like it that you like me. Well, isn't that just like me? There's so much going on. I also like the look of that box of donuts on the side. But on the whole, we like each other. Enough to start doing the things we both like. And that's how we ended up spending the night. Jamie. It wasn't to be. The times I spent with you were bliss, and to ponder on reasons for our breakup would be remiss, but every text you sent had an uppercase kiss, and for some reason that was really annoying. Oh, when I look back on it now, it seems like I was doing it all the time. I wasn't though. But as I've grown older, I've shown less and less interest in these matters. Things have slowed down. I've slowed down. I've become static. I feel like there's this sense still that my life is going nowhere. I'm now officially middle-aged, and there's a huge list of things I haven't done. And these will probably come up back to front, but shall we go through them? I've never been arrested. I've never bought a house. I've never bought a round in a pub. I've never learned to drive. I've never used a power drill. I've never paid a bribe to a council bin man because the things that I'd put in the bin weren't sorted correctly like they should be. I've never used an axe. I've never walked a dog. I've never had a promotion. I've never slapped a yak. I've never hosted a barbecue. I've never owned a sofa. I've never earned the respect of my contemporaries. I've never had a jacket dry cleaned. I've never fallen in love. I've never got married and had kids. So when I look at my life, I'm tempted to think that maybe I haven't done much with it. I don't have a fancy job, or a nice big house, or a big throbbing monster of a car. In fact, all of the things that seem to drive successful people seem to have passed me by. And you know what? I'm okay with that. It helps me concentrate on the important aspects of living, like sleeping and biscuits and buying hair gel. I'm about as camp as a tree. I'm about as flamboyant as Ryvita. Yet I see wonder and amazement everywhere. I watched a documentary once in which it was pointed out that the echoes and shockwaves from the Big Bang, which created existence itself, can still be heard as static on a radio receiver. The idea of this has always interested me immensely, and I may be just a poet, but I've always wanted to probe the origins of life and existence and make my own little mark on the world. The work of the Large Hadron Collider, I believe, will ultimately shed new light on the mysteries of the universe, and I try to muck in and help where I can. So for you, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, and for science in general, and for deeper understanding, I'm going to construct, right here, right now, a Large Hadron Collider. To do this, you need a shortbread biscuit, any kind of tablet, and a length of garden hose. So it's very simple. Set the camera like so. Hold the two ends very close together. This is where you need to be a bit double jointed, because you then need to get a crumb. Ready? Okay, so something happened there. We'll do it again one more time. Okay, let's see what we've come up with. Now, I must stress I'm not a scientist, so I will need someone to explain. Oh yes, here we go. I hope you can see these. Turn that one there, see that? That is amazing, isn't that amazing? And what else have we got? Oh yes, there's a good one. That is a classic. That is absolutely astounding. And oh yes, look at that. Isn't that something? And look at that, there's a good one. That is amazing. It even says boom on it. That is just brilliant. So there we go. What I'll do, I'll send those off to CERN and see what they can do analysing those. But you see, it's all connected. Everything is connected. Time and memory, light and shade, and all those atoms spinning around. Radio signals from the original Big Bang, and me. Me as a young man, with all that wonder and amazement. I'm still that person, only I've channeled it all elsewhere. The parts of it that haven't been ground down by the finer detail of living even now. Yet I'm also aware that the world I live in here is freer and more open excuse me, and accepting than other parts of the world. Large Hadron Collider crumbs. Yes, I'm also aware that the world I live in is more freer and open and accepting than other parts of the world could be. And that's what this next poem is all about. For those who are the exquisite, hidden in cupboards. For those who fortune denies because they refuse to shout. For those who would otherwise shine so bright were it not so dark and needlessly so. For those who are more conscious than the jaded so-called moral imperative. For those who multicolour the beige. For those who feel that burning, pounding, quick tempo heartbeat, tick, tick, ticking absolute proof down deep within. For those who don't want to upset anyone. For those who are being true to themselves. For those who love. For those who would dearly like to love but never will so long as they're fumbling in the pitch dark. For those who would spread compassion if given the chance. For those who stand tall and proud in the face of ignorance. For those who challenge the invented with the blinding torch of truth. For those who caress and whisper sweet nothings and then open their eyes to find an empty bed. For those who don't want to shock and close the door voluntarily. For those who care too much. for those who feel they have no brothers or sisters, for those who feel they are the only person ever to feel this way, for those who make 1,000 tiny differences a year, for those whose revolution will knowingly take longer than their own lifetimes, for those who would otherwise be flogged or hanged or stoned or cast from the safety of decent thought by those who profess to know the truth of words written fluent, yet deliberately twisted ambiguous in order to hide the cultural anger seething beneath, for those who delete their browsing history, for those who try to prise open the door knowing it will be slammed shut but keep on trying nonetheless, for those who paid the ultimate price, for those who resort to secret languages and those who give in and try to decipher filled with the eager promise of just knowing, for those who are afraid, for those who never will, for those who see the world quivering, ecstatic and reach out with trembling fingertips, ever so eager to be a part, yet knowing deep down they never will because they are not as brave or as fortunate as those who colour the world with love. For those who hide behind masks of dubious preferences just to make it look like they're one of the crowd. For those who are furious. For those who are curious. For those who log on with an alias. For those who dance ecstatic, the most writhing, sexual, beautiful, hypnotic dance, but only to themselves, alone, alone, alone in the mirror. For those who feel that everything is hopeless, faced with 96% against, newspaper editorials, fuming, spitting evangelists, political bullies, idiots with guns and clubs and religious texts, charismatic spirituality, cultural commentators and peddlers of hatred. For those who burst out so fast the world never could catch them. For those who burned up too soon. For those who took a chance and flowered briefly, then disappeared, leaving behind the hint that if done differently it might actually work. For those who are vehement in their love. For those who are just plain unlucky. For those who are scared. For those who are scarred. For those who would otherwise be sacred. You are the real. And your time will come. When superstition loses and common sense takes over, pile up your love right now, and when the door finally opens, it will all come tumbling through. I'm me. And I have been now for as long as I can remember. There were times when I tried to be someone other than me. Like when I pretended to be a car. But it always backfired. I was so intrepid back then. Like when Ben said he liked the colour magenta, walking in meadows and the soft downy fur of baby ducks. And I said I liked the colour magenta, walking in meadows and the soft downy fur of baby ducks. And then he dumped me. Like when Reese said he liked petrol station neon, the smell of glossy magazines and the feeling of writing on a banana skin. And I said I liked petrol station neon, the smell of glossy magazines and the feeling of writing on a banana skin. And then he dumped me. Like when Andrew said he liked Dire Straits, Jeremy Clarkson and any film starring Jason Statham. And I said, good luck with all that. He still dumped me, but at least I kept my integrity. And that made me feel kind of glad in a way. And I'm me, right at this present moment. That's what this is all about. I've never been me more than I am right now. And maybe in the future I will look back at all this and I'll think, wow, I was really me back then. Well, thank you so much for watching Static. Hope you all have a really good weekend, and hope to see you out there pretty soon, somewhere in the real world. Thank you for watching.